Hello and welcome to this video. My name is Kata and I'm talking today about the full moon in Aries coming up this Sunday on October the 9th. And I kind of wrote down like 11 tips that I have for everyone, including myself, for this full moon. And just kind of like a heads up in terms of what to be aware of for energies and stuff that are going to be very much present. I think I can already feel them, to be honest with you. So yeah, let's get straight into it. So how this energy is going to be affecting us is what I'm going to be really talking about, and then mentioning a couple of things that we can do to really help ourselves move through it in an easier, more flowing kind of way. So the first thing I wrote down was like, it's time. So this Aries full moon is basically asking us or telling us that it is time to align with our inner power, to overcome any obstacles in our life. We're not even in Mercury retrograde anymore, are we? But yeah, so it's about overcoming obstacles in our lives and really looking within ourselves to bring forth that power and to bring forth the courage to actually overcome those obstacles. It's also time to align with your passions. So this Aries full moon, Aries being the first sign of the zodiac, is definitely about the self. It's also about, fresh starts, new beginnings, all that kind of stuff. And there's something in the energy, and I've been feeling this for quite some time, but there's something in the energy, particularly this weekend, that is really pushing us to now finally start recognizing what our passions are. And if you don't know yet what you're passionate about, then this is a very, very good weekend to sit down with yourself and actually figure it out, and maybe spend a little time trying to figure it out, So and by passions, I mean by like your soul purpose. Like every single human being that is born on this planet has some type of gift, okay? Some people it's comedy, some people it's accounting, other, like they're really good with math. Some people it's art, some people it's music. Like we all have different innate talents that we are born with when we come here. And this Aries full moon is asking us to, can you go within yourself and figure out what your talents are if you don't know yet, or if you don't have awareness? In most cases, we have awareness of our talents and our skills and our abilities that we were born with, but we just don't have the courage to actually use it in our lives, or use it to make money, for example, to actually live out our passions through our work. Oftentimes we don't allow ourselves to do that. Like for me, I know that communication is something that I'm good at. I'm good at coaching and I'm good at counseling. This is something I've always been good at. And I'm a very, very good listener. So this is my skill. This is my specific skill that I work on and strengthen, and I use and I utilize. And I have finally come to understand how much I need to utilize it, because people need my specific skills and my specific ear when it comes to listening, right? And I know that sounds kind of weird, but it's true. Sometimes how you respond to someone's story is very, very different than how somebody else responds to somebody else's story. So it does make a difference who listens to your story, right? So again, just kind of really try to dig deep this weekend and get inside of yourself and figure out, what am I actually really good at, just naturally good at, something that I don't have to like study hard and work hard at, something that I'm just naturally capable of doing. And like I said, it could be anything, absolutely anything. If it's being funny, then it's being funny. And think about this weekend how you could capitalize on being funny, how you could use that gift and use that talent and share it with the world and put it out there so that others may benefit from your specific skills and gifts. Okay, there's a huge emphasis on that this weekend. So pay attention to that. And like I said, spend some time, please, in introspection and think about your passions or your soul purpose if you haven't given it much thought up until this point, or if you have been working a job, kind of just to pay the bills and get through life, right? Then take some time this weekend and think like, what new direction could I actually go in, perhaps, that isn't just about work paying the bills, but my work being my passion. So something to ponder. Yeah, so the full moon is going to be giving us a huge boost to actually help us figure this out. And that's why I'm saying, please take some time on Sunday. And it's perfect that it's on Sunday, because even though it's Thanksgiving weekend here in Canada, you know, and many people will be getting together with families over the weekend, and especially on Sunday. If you can still try to carve a little bit of time out somewhere, if you do end up having to go see a lot of different family and whatnot, still try to carve some time out for yourself on Sunday to really, you know, be able to focus on this and figure out your passions. Now, because this is a very fiery energy, because Aries is a fire sign, there are some feelings that also may arise within us. I was already feeling that yesterday. There's some feelings that may arise within you. So restlessness, impatience, frustration are going to be highlighted emotions that may arise at this time. And these are feelings, restless and impatient and frustrated feelings may be coming, or may be directed towards other people. So you may feel this with regards to other people, or you may actually feel it just within yourself, or that you may feel restless within yourself, or impatient with yourself, or frustrated with yourself, especially if you actually haven't been working on yourself, and if you have not been taking any time to deeply connect to your soul and to your heart and to those passions that I talked about earlier. So just know that that restlessness, the impatience, and the frustration may arise because of the fact that you have been ignoring it, yourself. You have been ignoring your deep inner being for a really long time. So, which brings me to my next point, that if you are not aligned with your soul at this time, and if you're not aligned, like I said, with your heart's true desires and with who you truly are, you know, not when you're switching hats of mom and sister and coworker and all that, not those, but just you, the essence of you. If you're not aligned with your soul essence at this time, this full moon may feel particularly challenging. I've already witnessed this actually through some of my family members, and I've noticed some of them are having a hard time with this. And I know that they're having a hard time with this because they're not aligned, and because they don't take enough time to really cultivate a spiritual practice, to allow themselves to take time to go within and to go within their heart space, and to also do, you know, what their passion is. I know I have family members who are like that and who are struggling actually at this time emotionally because of that, because it's an imbalance within you, and you know it and you feel it. You may not know exactly what is causing your imbalance, but you just feel off. So pay attention to that. It may arise for you this weekend. It may also cause energetic breakdowns in our system, in our energy bodies and in our energy system, our aura, the chakras, all of those things, particularly if there is misalignment or a lack of alignment, or if there is a blockage, lots of blockage energetically within the system, within your body, then energetic breakdowns could happen. Now, an energetic breakdown really means how that kind of translates, or an example of that would be like having an internal tantrum, like just kind of feeling almost like a fit of rage coming over you within yourself. Tears, obviously, bursts of anger, but like getting really emotional and just crying and feeling super sad, or just really intense feelings as you're crying. And then the bursts of anger too, it could be towards yourself. You could be super frustrated with yourself, or it could be directed towards other people that are in your life. So just be aware of that anger is really highlighted for this weekend because of the Aries full moon. Full moon is already a time of completion to begin with, and it's always an amplification of power. Now, if you have amplification of firepower, you can imagine it's going to create a little bit of chaos within all of us. Not necessarily chaos, but just intensity, right? For some people, it will create chaos. The ones that are not aligned, the ones that don't have a spiritual practice, the ones that don't do self-care routines, the people that only work, and you know, take all of their energy and constantly project it outwards and give it to other people, and never service themselves and never give themselves the time to truly take care of their bodies, their minds, their souls, their mental health. you know, those are the people that are really going to have a challenging time this weekend. But the people that are aligned, the people that connect to nature and go for walks and, you know, say daily prayers and have a spiritual practice, however small, are already going to feel a significantly smoother ride this weekend energetically. So keep that in mind. Yeah, and actually just one thing I wanted to say is be mindful of the anger. So when the anger arises within you and when you feel like you want to have these outbursts or you suddenly want to just like bite someone's head off verbally, then really just try to pause. Remind yourself that it's a full moon and the energy of the full moon is just kind of like amping up that that anger and that charge within you. So here, this is kind of going to be a bit of a test, I feel, from the universe for us, is how are you going to show up when the energy is intense? Do you have enough self-control to be able to take yourself and back down into a place of like, okay, chill the fuck out. This is just energy. And, you know, I'm just going to go outside and maybe breathe for 5 minutes instead of exploding on that guy, right? Or I'm just going to go for a walk, or I'm just going to do whatever instead of fighting with my spouse or my kids, right? Like, try to control yourself and try not to give in or surrender to that anger, because it could really, really cause major damage, emotional damage, particularly this weekend. Another thing to be mindful of is, and I put 3 stars around this one, so it's particularly important, please keep this in mind, is make sure that your boundaries are respected. So once again, being the long weekend, the Thanksgiving long weekend here in Canada, it is going to be a time of getting together, particularly with family. And this is going to be, again, a very good weekend to kind of test to see how people respect or don't respect your boundaries, and pay attention to that. So boundaries is going to be, and any issues around boundaries are going to be in the forefront for sure this Thanksgiving long weekend. Make sure they are respected. And if you feel that they are not respected, so as soon as anger rises within you, that is an indication that your boundaries are being overstepped. So in that moment, can you take a moment and say, okay, that just really tweaked me or pissed me off? Remind yourself, okay, that pissed me off because they just crossed the line. And can you express that in the moment, but in a loving way? And instead of biting somebody's head off and saying, what the fuck? And like, you crossed the line and you crossed the boundaries. Instead of doing that, can you just express and let them know, like, hey, you know, that was really not okay. That really crosses the line. It crosses my boundaries and it makes me feel very disrespected. Please don't do it again. And if you don't get the response that you want, if there's no compassion back, or there's no understanding, or there's just no respect for your boundaries, and they're like, what are you talking about? Then you know that, okay, I'm just going to go. And you pack yourself up and you get out of there and you leave. Because if you don't, you can get triggered and possibly will get triggered. And, you know, it's going to cause, obviously, a fight or an argument or something that you're not going to want, because it's going to deplete you and drain you energetically like crazy. And I just don't think we should spend our, especially Thanksgiving weekend, bickering with family. So I would much rather you guys walk away than to stay and fight. Okay? Throw the gloves off. My next point, actually, which ties into boundaries, is about asking for what you need. And this is, I'm talking about from the, like, obviously the people that are closest to you. So can you have the courage this weekend to ask for your needs to be met? If you feel like you actually genuinely need something, help, support, love, a talk, a conversation, like whatever, then have the courage to ask for that. Because again, only we are responsible for our own happiness, and only we know truly what we need in any given moment and what we need from others, right? But if you don't express that, if you don't say it, people are not mind readers. And I remind people that I counsel and I coach that, you know, your spouse is not a mind reader. Like, can you use the right words, find the right words, and maybe take some time and write it out if that's easier to do, you know, instead of doing it in the moment. Then write a list of all of the things that you need from your person or just from anyone around you, and let them know how you need to be supported. Don't expect people to figure it out, and do not expect them to read your mind. They're not going to be able to do that. Most of us are struggling at this time, I think, anyway, in the world. I think a lot of people are going through a lot of emotional turmoil. So it's very important that we show up for ourselves and that we show up for our family members and for other people in really the best possible way that we can, without judging them for whatever they're going through. Yeah, next point here, exercise. So exercise is going to be hugely, hugely helpful, especially if you're feeling frustrated or angry. Exercise will be very helpful to burn off the excess stress energy. So anytime that we feel angry or frustrated, when you exert physical force, you're actually expelling that energy out of you. You're pushing it out of your body through your muscle contractions, through doing everything that you're doing. And that helps you to release angry, tired, exhausted energy that is bogging you down, pushing you down, and making you feel frustrated. So it's very, very important to challenge yourself physically if you feel like you're really stressed. Like, definitely try to get out, go for a run, go for a walk, hike up a mountain, like do whatever, anything that's going to exert force. Weights, particularly weights, will be very helpful to exert this force, to push this force out, and to burn off that, like I said, that excess tired, stressful, or angry energy. Redirecting our negative emotions and channeling into breaking through our fears, confusion, doubt, or misdirection. So redirecting all of the negative energy and just emotions and stuff. So I know for me particularly, I was feeling really, really low both Wednesday and Thursday this week. Both days I just felt angry. I felt frustrated, extremely frustrated. I felt misdirected. There was like doubt. There was a ton of confusion coming up for me. So all of those negative emotions have already been arising within me. I always feel the energy a few days before it even hits. So like I said, Wednesday and Thursday was already a shit show for me. Yesterday was better, but Wednesday was particularly heavy for me in my emotions. So redirecting this energy, and that's what I'm actually doing today. So I woke up today. I still feel a little bit of that, you know, where I could just blow a fuse in a matter of seconds, but I'm not going to. Like, I'm really focusing on redirecting my energy and just not allowing myself to go down that rabbit hole, you know, that I've always allowed myself to go down before. Like, if I would get angry, I would allow myself to get really angry. And now I'm taking that energy and I'm redirecting it, and I'm trying to do other things. So this morning I felt some frustration. I went for a really great power walk. I was sweating, like it was awesome. And I felt like it was just gone when I finished my power walk. So something that simple can really shift you in a big, big way, right? Just going for a walk, but like sweat, you know, push yourself. And again, this is all about redirecting your negative energy and channeling it into something positive. 2 more points left here. So forgive yourself and or someone. Forgiveness, again, is going to be a massive theme for this weekend. And forgiveness is coming up because Aries, being a fire sign, pushes to the surface, again, those feelings and those emotions that we have really stored in our bodies, that we've shoved down, you know, that we've been suppressing and depressing within ourselves. And what do we always suppress and depress? Or what are we depressed about usually? It's about unhealed relationships, you know, unsaid things. It's about anger or resentment towards other people, right? It's when we get hurt. It's that hurt that we always try to shove down and ignore. And, you know, eventually as time goes, you know, we feel it less and less. But in most cases, it's not because we've processed it and we've let it go. In most cases, it's just because we've shoved it down so far that we actually almost don't feel it anymore and almost have no awareness of it anymore. And yet there it is inside of our bodies being stored. And every so often when the energies are in ripe alignment for it, it'll be triggered for it to come to the surface, for it to be released. And if you're not going to take the time to release it or to do any practices that help you release it, then it's just going to sit there. And guess what that low vibrational, dense energy does? It weighs you down like crazy, and it bogs your energy down. It makes you tired. It makes you unmotivated. It makes you lash out. Like it's just not, it's a heaviness that you carry, right? And every bit of heaviness that we carry within ourselves is heaviness, or takes away from the lightness that we could be feeling, and takes away the energy that we need or that we could use to channel into our work, into our mission, into our soul's mission and life purpose, right? So be mindful that heaviness is something that you're going to want to process and release. It's not something you're going to want to hang on to. So forgiving, and I highlighted yourself here, forgiving yourself. I think that's where it starts, to be honest. It's much easier to forgive other people when you have forgiven yourself first, and when you've let yourself off the hook first. And I know from my personal life, if I look at some things within myself, then I most definitely feel that there is some dense energy within me that has to do with resentment towards myself, and feeling doubt, and feeling like not good enough, or that I haven't done a good enough job. There's a lot of that, you know, and again, it's just dense, and it just sits there. So I'm needing to reflect actually this weekend, and look into my own issues with myself, and find out, you know, what it is that I haven't forgiven myself for. You know, where have I judged my path, or where have I judged my actions that I've taken in the past? And perhaps maybe it was unjustified judgment, or perhaps it was justified, but it still makes no sense at this point to be holding myself hostage emotionally because of, you know, a mess up I did like 10 years ago, right? So it just makes no sense. And that's why it's important to begin with forgiving yourself. So can you just let yourself off the hook for your fuck ups and say, you know what? I've messed up many times through this, through that. I said this and I shouldn't have, or whatever actions, whatever you think that you have done wrong, forgive yourself for those things, and just allow yourself to feel good about yourself, and remind yourself that it's okay. I am on a journey to learn from my mistakes. And those mistakes have actually led me to where I am now. And they have allowed me to become a better person because I have learned from my mistakes. Maybe not from all of them, but I have learned from many of them. And that in itself is enough. You know, I think most of us have a very messed up perfectionistic expectation of ourselves. And if we are not meeting those illusionary expectations, then somehow we deem ourselves wrong and not good enough, and, you know, like you're not doing enough, and that's just very toxic, and it's very heavy. Like it builds this really heavy toxic energy within you, and then you're dragging it around with you, and then you just feel like shit all the time about yourself. Like that's why forgiving ourselves is one of the most important things. And this is something I'm also working on with, and I've actually come a really long way. There's a lot of things I used to really have myself on the hook for, and now I don't. I've unhooked a lot of hooks from my back. Let's just put it that way, that I have put there. Now, and always remember that when it comes to forgiveness, so you're forgiving yourself, and if there's someone else that has hurt you, remember that you're carrying that heaviness within yourself. So when we forgive other people, we are forgiving them for ourselves, so that we can release that energy, so that we can release that heaviness and feel lighter within ourselves, and just feel released, feel unbound to that person through that trauma. You know what I mean? Like when you forgive, you unbind yourself from that person and from that trauma. and you're healing and moving on from it and allowing yourself to come back into the present moment instead of living in your past through carrying, you know, anger, resentment towards that individual or towards yourself. So that was the 10th point. And the very, very last thing, and one more thing here I want to say about forgiveness is staying angry means that you equals you thinking about that person. So don't forget that when you hold resentment for someone, that means you're thinking about that someone probably far more than you should. So do you really want to be thinking about somebody that has hurt you in the past? Wouldn't it be easier just to forgive them and recognize, like, okay, they were clearly very unconscious. They were clearly not in their heart space when they did that. They were clearly very much in their ego, and you know, that's okay. I remember times when I'm in my ego, so I'm just going to forgive this person for being in their ego, for being non-compassionate, and I'm going to forgive them for not being understanding towards me in that moment, and just recognize their humanness and say, you know, I forgive you. And you don't have to necessarily say to the person. You can just do this practice within yourself. You can write a letter and say, like, I forgive you for da 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 da, and you write it down. So you can do it in many different ways. Like, there's a lot of different exercises, or you can actually sit down and have a heart-to-heart if you wish to continue having a relationship with that person, and you would like to offload, you know, this burden that is currently sitting on your relationship. Then having a heart-to-heart sit down is actually the best way to do it. And then hug it out, like the Care Bears always say, right? Okay, last point, 11th point here for Aries full moon this weekend is, last but not least, and definitely not in any kind of particular order, open your heart. That is my last point. So enter a compassionate frequency by choice. Okay, so this is about you choosing to go into a place of love within yourself, and opening your heart means to feel. It means to genuinely feel joy and happiness within yourself. That's how you know that your heart is open, and not just for yourself, but for other people. And really open your heart bravely. Can you allow yourself to be vulnerable? Can you allow yourself to be compassionate? And can you choose the frequency of compassion by your free will? Because you have that option. It's up to you always. You know, so open your heart and remember that it is the Thanksgiving weekend, and this is truly the time to give thanks for not only the things, the material things that we have in our life, but most certainly the food that nourishes us, that we have available to us every day. To give thanks for family members and for the people that are supportive and beautiful and wonderful in our lives. To give thanks for our own capabilities and for our own strength and for our own courage to keep persevering. There are so many things that we can be grateful for other than just, you know, materialistic things. And I think this full moon landing on Thanksgiving basically is a pretty good indicator that it's time to be grateful for spiritual things. It's time to be grateful for our own spirit, for our own heart, and allow ourselves to embody that and find that compassion within us, and to connect to that energy with intention and on purpose. So have a beautiful Thanksgiving weekend here in Canada. I know in the US you guys will be celebrating a little bit later than us. And when the time comes, I'll be wishing you guys a happy Thanksgiving. But for the Canadians right now, happy Thanksgiving, and to the world wherever you celebrate it, or if you are celebrating it this weekend. And remember to stay in your heart. Don't get involved in conflict. Don't allow anger to rise and sabotage this weekend and sabotage the peace within yourself that you, I know, want to feel. And just stay heart-centered, stay within yourself, and truly have compassion for yourself, have forgiveness for yourself, and forgiveness for others. And if you do that, if you just pay attention to these things and try to prevent yourself from getting triggered. I think you will find that you will navigate this full moon in Aries on this beautiful October 9th full moon in a very beautiful, smooth, easy way. So give yourself that opportunity to experience that, okay? Have a wonderful weekend, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for liking and subscribing, and I will see you all in the next one. Mwah! Happy Thanksgiving!